Okay, so following on from the prior video of Captain Diversity crashing her boat, I want to give you an update as the story develops and we learn of more hilarity. We now know that 3 out of 4 of these diversity poster children of the New Zealand Navy have fudged up somehow in their short stints as captains. But, of course, there are still some defending this and saying, it's all just coincidence, Tom. It's nothing to do with diversity hiring policies. Let me begin with a correction from the last video. I said that the ship had cost 100 million New Zealand dollars. That was wrong, and I apologise. Thanks to everyone in the comments who gave me the correct number. It actually cost 103 million, with this rising to $147 million to get it fit for purpose prior to it being named and launched by that well-loved ex-Prime Minister of New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern. And that's not the end of it. The ship was built in 2003 and used within the oil and gas industry. The New Zealand Defence Force bought it in 2018. They were aiming to buy a brand new ship but blew their budget on fitting out the rest of their fleet, so they had to buy second hand. At the time they bought it, the valuation price was just short of 20 million, so God only knows why they paid 103, and that's after they'd gone through a thoroughly extensive review of 150 vessels to select the right one. Just imagine the amount of paper shuffling bureaucrats involved for months, maybe even years, sitting in meetings, writing emails and reviews to reach that decision and end up paying 80 million over the valuation. They got scammed. My brothers and sisters across the ditch, what the hell is your defence force doing, pissing your money up the wall like this? New Zealanders should be marching through the streets right now demanding answers. But wait, there's more. The ship, which cost 150 million, was not fully insured, and only some of the cleanup will be covered. Add on to that whatever Samoa will demand in compensation for damages and for their part in the rescue, and all those New Zealand naval officers now getting paid for doing nothing. Yeah, I know management will invent some shore work for them because that's what government is good at, inventing their own purpose. And then there's the cost of buying a replacement ship. The total cost of this to the taxpayer is going to be massive. A bit more on Yvonne. Her career started with her getting a Bachelor of Education with honours from Lancaster University. You know me, I don't put much value on someone's university qualifications. They can be worthwhile, but they can also be junk. But the fact that she struggled to even find a job teaching primary school kids suggests it may have been a junk degree. From there, she joined the British Navy, spending 20 years as a warfare officer working on various crafts and helping to work up ship and crews to peak efficiency. Now, as a veteran of the public service myself, I can read between the lines and interpret this as paper shuffling roles, warfare theory and policy and procedure writing probably. After that, she had a camper van holiday with her wife in New Zealand, decided to move there, and with her 20 years experience in the British Navy, the New Zealand Defence Force jumped at the opportunity to employ her and hand over a ship to her. This interview with her is extremely telling. She said her eyes lit up at the thought of taking command of the Manawanui. Sure, for a lot of welfare should be better suited to welfare. Sure, for a lot of warfare officers, that's the pinnacle of their career, to get to drive a ship. That's her own words. Her eyes lit up when given the chance to take command. This is a fantasy that she's had in her mind for a long time, being in command and driving the ship. It's similar to that carrot that draws in many people doing these ridiculous PhDs. All they are thinking about is how cool it's going to be when they can call themselves doctor. And in Yvonne's case, she's been dreaming about telling all her friends at dinner parties about how she's the captain of the big boat and she has to tell all the men what to do. It's boss lady attitude. It's a terrible starting point. I don't read in those lines a genuine desire to lead a team to victory or to guide each of her direct reports to some sort of personal improvement. What I read is attention seeking and glamour chasing. She should go back to driving the camper van. Her LinkedIn profile is predictably a collection of management buzzwords and empty platitudes. You know what we say on this channel, anyone who takes LinkedIn seriously is a fraud, and she takes her LinkedIn posts very seriously. What's the most important thing in the world? It's the people, it's the people, it's the people. Man, I'm touched. What a leader. Sometimes you just have to put one foot in front of the other. The versatility of a warship. One day conducting survey, the next delivering relief aid. And 10 months later, sitting at the bottom of the ocean. That's the versatility of a warship. Some sort of post about inclusion, pink shirt day. This is the empty-headed shite I've seen for 20 years in government departments in Australia. And the senior management use this crap to rise up. Apologies for my poor profile at the moment. Perhaps signing up and then going away for a week to live in a non-Wi-Fi military camp was not the greatest of ideas. My planning is usually so much better than this. This is my life. Since leaving managing pubs 20 years ago to go into IT and project management, this is what I deal with non-stop. Senior management, male and female, who are often la-la land. They've all got these vacant, googly eyes. They're lost in their own dreams. Circus music playing non-stop in their heads. Now, we've already covered Captain Yvonne Gray's wee mishap, or her triumph, as the Defence Minister called it. And of course, we don't have all the information yet. But for a bit more insight from a maritime expert, go check out the channel What is Going On with Shipping. This guy knows about boats and shit, and he gives an incredible summary from his perspective. I won't try to quote him, as I won't do it justice, but it's very interesting about what is claimed to have happened and his take on it all. And for more hilarity from the Defence Minister Judith Collins, see Baring's video. I won't cover it in full, but basically she's desperately trying to spin this as the best thing to ever happen, and it's not an embarrassment for the Navy. I also mentioned previously a second woman in this picture, Commander Fiona Jameson. She wasn't as bad, she only did 220 grand's worth of damage to her ship. And just like Yvonne, the Navy have been using her as a poster child throughout her career. This article is from back in 2005, where Fiona said her life dream was to become captain of her own ship. She claimed that she wanted to have that responsibility to drive a $600 million warship with 170 people on board who all depended on her to keep them safe. There's a fantasy been brewing in her head since well before this 2005 article. I get it. It's partly an instinctive desire to protect others. Perhaps she'd have been better off staying home to protect, nurture, and develop her own children, instead of her and her husband always going off to work at sea and leaving the kids with other parents from the school and somehow trying to reframe that as something to be applauded. Fiona's LinkedIn profile is funnier than Yvonne's. A lot of reposts of feminist slogans and propaganda. Happy Monday to all angry women. Please buy these books on feminism. Be authentic, be brave, be resilient, and above all, be yourself. How do we change the mindset that empowering others is not a threat to yourself? This is something about white privilege. This from the commander of a multi-million-dollar warship. How do we convince the world that celebrating women is not a threat to men? I've yet to meet anyone that disagrees with the ideal of their daughters having the same opportunities as the boys they go to school with. That's all feminism is. Well, I agree with her on the first sentence. The second sentence shows her absolute lack of having the slightest idea of the criticisms of feminism. If she can't at least wrap her head around and articulate the opposing views to this modern feminist movement, then how the hell can she outsmart the enemy commander in her battleship? A third woman in this picture, Commander Bronwyn Heslop, was last month stepped down and put under investigation. For what? I'm not entirely sure. But she has also been given media attention in the past celebrating diversity. Heslop told Navy Today she brought a feminine touch to the Canterbury. My 3 pet peeves: leaning on guardrails, hands in pockets, chewing of gum. The ship already runs very well. She's a very happy ship. It's not about changing anything, I'm just bringing that old-fashioned Navy standards but delivered with a feminine touch, she told the magazine. Wouldn't those things be pretty standard for any high-ranking military officer to be against? There's nothing groundbreaking there. I hope that wasn't the key point she made in the job interview that swayed the interview panel. Well, I loved her take on the no chewing of gum on board the ship. Let's promote her over those guys who didn't mention chewing gum policy. As yet, I've heard nothing concerning about the fourth lady, Lieutenant Samara Mankello. I wish her all the best, and we'll give her the assumption that she was promoted on merit. But it's not just the New Zealand Defence Force who's having to face accusations of putting political correctness ahead of merit and rushing through candidates to show off diversity, all at the expense of safety. In 1994, Cara Hultgreen, a pilot in the US Navy, died just months after she'd been certified for combat when she crashed into the sea on approach to the aircraft carrier. Now, it's been claimed that she may have been victim of a flawed policy that overlooked her mistakes in training, and that she'd been allowed to continue through training despite unusually low scores and mistakes which would have ruled out male trainees, possibly as the Navy were in a race to beat the Air Force in having the first female combat pilot. Of course, there were many in positions of authority who denied this. It certainly wouldn't have fit their narrative, and I guess we'll never know the truth. Now, another example that comes to mind was the US astronaut Serena Auñón-Chancellor, who was accused of drilling holes into the International Space Station which, if not found, would have depressurized the station within 2 weeks. Serena is said to have done this as a result of having an emotional breakdown and was keen to head back home to Earth. But this should not reflect badly on women or on NASA's diversity policies, because out of the 73 women who have been to space, only one tried to drill holes into their spacecraft. And I suppose that's not bad odds, is it? There was the other one who pled guilty to burglary and misdemeanor battery charges after the guy she was having an affair with dumped her for someone else, and she drove 900 miles to accost the other woman at an airport and attacked her with pepper spray. But I guess I'll give her a pass, as that was nothing to do with her job as a space traveller. Hold the phone, here's another. Astronaut Anne McCain was accused of committing crime while in space. She allegedly accessed her wife's bank accounts from the space station, but the claims were found to be false. Okay. Look, I do allow for the possibility that it wasn't Yvonne's fault, but there's a reason why so many people jumped to the same conclusion as I did, and that is that this has been happening in the workplace for years, maybe even decades. It's been increasing, and most people so far have been politely biting their lip as they have had to work harder to cover for the mistakes of the diversity hires who get promoted due to DEI policies instead of merit. It's coming to a head. The tipping point is near. People are noticing. Male and female, gay and straight, white and all the other colours are getting sick of it. Loved all the comments on the last video, hilarious, please keep them coming. Also, one of my favourite things is when people who don't like my videos watch them anyway, and then they leave a comment to tell me they didn't like the video and that I'm an idiot and a sexist and I'm homophobic or some other word that they just pulled out of their arse. It's fantastic. The more comments, the better. Alright, that went longer than planned. If you're still around watching at this point and want more, then what can I recommend? Probably some of the videos on fake and useless PhDs. Enjoy.